Hello, everybody. Today is March 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day, and we're doing a little update on some of the questions that have come to me as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. And what agents are asking for today is advice on taking listings in open houses. A couple of emails that I've received. I'd like to share my responses with those to both our clients as well as the agents in our office. And the first question that I had seen come through this morning is, I have a listing coming up this weekend. What's your thoughts on doing an open house while we're dealing with the coronavirus? I responded that it was an excellent question and that I would make a video about this today so that everybody can share it together. I think that a most socially responsible open house is acceptable. I do mean that in a very broad sense. Our public needs to be aware that they're entering into other people's spaces, and that I think we have a right to ask for certain activities to be done at the door. Certainly one of those activities is to register at the door. We would like the names and phone numbers of at least one, if not all, the folks in the party. Should there be a reason to contact folks in the future, we need to have that information, and the seller also needs that information should they feel poorly in the future. I don't anticipate that will happen, but I would like to stress that registration is really not an option at this point. So if a customer at the door is not willing to do that and be legitimate, then we'll just have to ask them to come back another day. A couple of other things, though, that we can do is to monitor the flow of traffic through the property. If we have a large home, 2 or 3 stories, many thousands of square feet, then we can perhaps have 2 or 3 groups into a property at one time, keeping the social distance rules. However, if we have a small rambler that is rather confined, a 2 or 3 bedroom on one level, maybe only one party at a time should be going through that property, and the others waiting outside and taking their turn. We also should be prepared to have hand sanitizer at the door. Ask folks to use that prior to entering the property. Also hand them a napkin or paper towels, perhaps, to use that to turn doorknobs or open cabinets of what they would be curious about in a property, but to be respectful of the seller's environment and making sure they're not passing along anything or catching anything from previous visitors. So that would be a good policy as well. And lastly, I really would like to see any children carried or in hand by the adults, loose running around. Children just don't know what to touch and not to touch, and it's very important that we keep our environment as safe as possible. So politely ask that all children stay in hand or carried while looking at a property. And then don't be afraid, if you feel that it's necessary to simply ask somebody if they've felt well. Have they had any symptoms in the last week or 14 days? And if so, politely decline them, offer to do a video tour of a home for them, something of that nature. But be diligent on that issue and be polite. But love to hear how your results are going with that, making sure that you've got the supplies, equipment, notifications, sign-in sheets, and so forth. A second question came in right now that I think is also relevant. Let me read this to you. It says, my sellers, listing this week and another very soon, are questioning the wisdom of listing right now. Both sellers, coincidentally, are San Francisco based and have experienced shelter-in-place policy by the government. I think that we may see those same policies implemented here. Even if not, I also have concerns about potentially putting my sellers at risk of contamination with multiple showings in their living space. I'm thinking about suggesting we wait on listing for a little while and see where this unprecedented situation takes us. What's my thoughts? Well, those are the thoughts that we have for sure. Everybody is making decisions based upon that exact question. So I think that, quite frankly, I would base my decision on a couple of 3 or 4 factors. First of all, I would be clear with the owner that it's ultimately their decision. If they're not comfortable, we're not comfortable. We respect that entirely. Some folks will have different attitudes of this, and that we need to respect their decisions. The next decision that I think is really important is the property occupied or not? Certainly there is a difference in that. If you have an occupied property with many family members living in the home, that's different than an unoccupied vacant home. Or perhaps even a home that only has 1 or 2 occupants versus many, a whole family. Another factor might be the area, the location of the property, the demand for the property. I know in many of the Seattle markets, things are under $750,000 are selling extremely fast, and that it may not be on the market very long if priced well. So that comes back to then the next question is, what's the urgency of the seller? Why are they moving? There's reasons, we could have 1,000 different reasons of why somebody's moving at this time. And some reasons demand that they would like to sell sooner than later. And so we respect that. We'll take every precaution with our policies of sanitation and limiting folks into the home, scheduling appointments if necessary, so on. And that it's okay to move forward. Other sellers may not have so much urgency. They simply had in mind to catch a spring market, and that, again, right now, perhaps isn't the greatest time in the world for them to be exposed to public. Maybe their demographic, maybe their age group, or their previous health status says wait. So, those are all some of the factors that we need to take into consideration. There's probably others. I haven't mentioned all of them, but those are the big ones. And if you certainly have individual events or circumstances, feel free to email me. I do have one more thing. Our current contracts that may need an extension to close. I just came off of another webinar, and a good point was brought up that some brokers are drafting contracts with all kinds of crazy language in there that aren't really legal. So open-ended extensions until the virus goes away is not a legal contract. So please stay to all your forms as provided by the MLS. There's a Century 21A form under company forms in the MLS that provides for an automatic extension of 10 days. Buyers and sellers agree at the time of mutual agreement. That's a great form. If you receive any extension offers, it's your listing, and you're not fully happy with the language in that addendum, please submit it to me and I'll review it, or have Teresa review it. But we want to make sure that we are not playing attorneys or making up legal languages. So those are the 3 things we want to talk about today. Feel free to reach out to me. That's how I get my questions answered for the group. Have a great day. Continue to sell property. Oh, lastly, we're on pace for a record month in March. This is not a bad time to be a buyer or seller in the sense of financing and market demand. It's all about safety, however, and that comes number 1. Have a great day. Bye-bye.